Welcome to the Choose Love podcast, a show that chronicles the extraordinary love of ordinary people. Our hope is that these stories will inspire us all to #ChooseLove. The podcast is presented by Ellen Adhira, your digital bridesmaid. We are here to take your squad moments to the next level and help curate your bridal style so that you can focus on love. Nason and I met on Memorial Day, just a few months before I turned 14. His family had just moved in across the street from me and my dad. My blossoming teenhood and the budding Illinois summer were a combined intoxicant that had me drunk with hope for something profound and exciting. As my friends and I walked home from the movies that evening in late May, Nason and his friends popped out from behind the bushes that lined a church parking lot adjacent to both of our houses. They hurled an arsenal of water balloons at us, mostly missing us, but still inspiring us to sprint the half a block back to my dad's house, exhilarated and feigning fury.
One of my earliest memories, one I think you're very fond of, is some of my friends and I threw water balloons at you and your friends while you were walking in front of my house because you were my neighbor at the time. Your dad lived across the street from me, so...
2 years later, we had fourth hour French together. Nason fell asleep in class often and never seemed to notice me across the room at all. For a long time, this is all we were to each other. Acquaintances, neighbors, classmates, people who were once involved in a very one-sided water balloon fight. Whatever forces bring two people together took their time with us.
When we first started dating, we were both taking a semester off from school. You began to frequent one of the restaurants that I worked at. I don't know if it was because of me or because of the food, but...
I was taking a little bit of time off of school to reevaluate what I really wanted to do with my life. So my best friend and I ended up going out to lunch like every single day. And there are only a couple of really good places to eat in our tiny hometown. So we recycled them all a couple times a week. And one of them was a Chinese restaurant where Nason was a server.
I remember you being far more intelligent than me. So when we first started dating, I took that into consideration and I might have tried to play myself up a little bit.
It was so non-committal and casual at first. I don't think either of us expected it to turn into anything real. And then 6 months later, we were moving in together, a state away.
That entire summer was awesome, but I remember specifically us laying in the hammock in the middle of a forest, and you very genuinely told me that you thought I was so funny, and I thought that was extremely awesome, and I rode that wave for a long time after that. I had been thinking about when I wanted to propose to you for quite some time, and your mom had offered me an heirloom ring a few months before this, maybe 3 or 4 months, and I kept thinking of whatever I thought in my mind would be the perfect setting. If I would have continued to wait for the perfect moment, it probably would have never came. But we had planned a backpacking trip to the Pacific Northwest and to meet up with one of our good friends who her family lived in Shasta. They had a cabin out there. So, I always kept this ring in a heart-shaped plastic container, as you do with all engagement rings, and I kept it in my backpack. So looking back on this, I think that everybody made fun of me for having my backpack on me constantly, but I was just always prepared to pop this question because I knew it was going to happen on this vacation. But we were in Northern California, had planned a day hike up the Black Butte, which is a satellite volcano to Mount Shasta, and it is a grueling 2-mile hike, which felt like forever of just constant switchbacks, but the scenery was spectacular. So the whole time I'm walking up there, I'm nervous that I'm just nervous in general. So we make it to the top of this volcano, and it's beautiful. And I think I didn't have a doubt that you wouldn't say yes, but I was still extremely nervous. So initially I had planned on like getting up there and triumphantly getting on a knee, and I just got stuck in my mind and so nervous for a minute. But luckily there's a resident chipmunk on top of this satellite volcano that was very obviously not his first time encountering people, and he came over to us, and you fed him a Brazilian nut, which was larger than his head. And so we got to spend like 10 minutes feeding this chipmunk, which probably shouldn't have fed the wildlife, but he came to us, so I think it's a good exception to the rule. But we had lunch up there, and then we were getting ready to leave, and I finally built up the courage that I was going to do it, so I asked if our friends would snap a picture of us. Mount Shasta is right behind us, and we're like, 9,000 feet elevation. And I asked you if you were ready while we're standing on the edge of this volcano. And you said, am I ready? And then I proposed. I think there's a metaphor in there somewhere about doing a very grueling hike and it being very satisfactory to reach the top of this place. And it's like, relationships aren't easy, but if you're willing to put in the work, it's very rewarding at the end and while you're doing it.
I think the thing that I've learned most of all in our relationship is that being in love with someone doesn't mean breakfast in bed and a dozen roses every other day. It's not all beautiful and it's not all sweet. There are moments that are really difficult. But I think that it also means making an effort and making a conscious choice to choose that person every day. And I think that the best thing that you can have in a partner is someone that you know is really there for you. You have someone who is your person no matter what.